Jimin collapses in tears after hearing Jungkook's haunting voice message. What he reveals threatens everything BTS ever stood for. "Hyung, if you're hearing this, then it means I failed." The voice echoed like a ghost through the cold silence of the recording studio. Jimin's hands trembled as the voice note ended, his phone slipping from his grasp and clattering onto the hardwood floor. The room was dark except for the flicker of the red recording sign outside the booth, casting blood-colored reflections on the glass. His breath caught in his throat. That voice, Jungkook's voice, wasn't supposed to exist anymore. It had been 7 months since Jungkook vanished. No final message, no warning, just a note left on his apartment door. "Don't look for me." The world mourned. The fandom had split into warring theories. Some blamed the industry. Others whispered of something darker, something none of them dared name aloud. Jimin had never accepted it. He couldn't. Jungkook had been more than a brother, more than a bandmate. He was the thread that held everything together. And now, here was his voice. Quiet, breathless, urgent. "Don't trust what you see. They're watching. They always were." Jimin stared blankly at the studio monitors. His reflection blinked back at him, pale and stunned. The last time he'd heard Jungkook speak like that was the night before he disappeared. That night he'd come to Jimin's door, soaked in sweat and fear, whispering something about the contract. A sharp knock shattered the stillness. Jimin flinched, instinctively wiping his face, only now realizing that tears had been streaming down his cheeks. The door creaked open. It was Namjoon. "You okay?" he asked, eyes narrowing as he took in the scene. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I think I did," Jimin muttered, voice hoarse. He bent down, picked up the phone, and replayed the voice note. But this time, nothing, just silence. "Where did you get that?" Namjoon asked, stepping closer. "It was just there," Jimin said. "On my phone. No sender, no timestamp, just appeared." Namjoon's face paled. He turned away, running a hand through his hair. "That's not possible," he whispered. "He's gone, Jimin. You know he's—" "No." Jimin cut him off, standing now, his voice gaining strength. "I don't know anything, and neither do you." Namjoon stared at him, something flickering in his eyes. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. Outside, the night deepened, thick with the humidity of a Seoul summer. Somewhere in the distance, thunder cracked. A storm was coming. Back in the dorms, Jimin couldn't sleep. The voice note kept replaying in his head. "If you're hearing this, I failed." Failed? What? Who was watching? And why now? He opened his drawer and pulled out the old Polaroid Jungkook had left him. A photo taken during one of their last rehearsals. Everyone was laughing. Jungkook had drawn a tiny crown on his head with black ink, adding the caption, "King of Chaos Forever." Jimin clenched the photo tightly. Something wasn't right. This wasn't just grief playing tricks on his mind. He could feel it. Every instinct screamed that this message wasn't just a memory, it was a warning. He didn't notice the figure standing across the street until lightning briefly illuminated the window. A man in a hood, unmoving, staring up at him. And when Jimin looked again, the man was gone. The next morning, the fandom exploded. A leak had surfaced. A 15-second audio clip, Jungkook's voice. The same message Jimin had received. The hashtags trended worldwide in minutes. Jungkook message, "Hi's alive. What did he fail?" And then, the real terror began. Because the voice note wasn't from the past. It had been recorded 2 days ago. "You didn't tell them, did you?" Taehyung's voice was low, almost inaudible over the hum of the studio's ventilation system. He stood in the corner, arms crossed, eyes locked on Jimin like he was trying to read something buried deep under his skin. Jimin turned slowly, still clutching the phone like it might vanish again. "How could I? They'd think I'm insane. They already do." Taehyung stepped forward, a flicker of something unreadable in his expression. Anger, worry, betrayal. That message changes everything, and it's not just your secret to carry. "Then why did you hide it too?" Jimin snapped. "You saw the man in the street last night. You saw him. I'm not the only one losing my mind." Taehyung hesitated. His lips parted, then closed. A shadow crossed his face. "I've seen him before." Jimin's breath hitched. "What?" "I didn't know what I was looking at back then. I thought it was stress, jet lag, Hell, I thought maybe I just missed Jungkook too much. But he was there, watching. He never comes close, just watches. The silence between them thickened like storm clouds. It was Namjoon who finally broke it, stepping into the studio, uninvited. "Both of you," he said, his voice taut with command, "need to stop talking unless you want everything we've built to burn to the ground." Jimin's eyes flared. "You knew this was coming, didn't you?" Namjoon didn't answer immediately. He walked to the soundboard, staring at it as if it could offer some salvation, some logic to what they were dealing with. Then he looked up, his gaze hollow. "We signed something we didn't understand. Jungkook tried to fight it, and now..." "Now what?" Taehyung growled. Namjoon turned toward them, his voice barely above a whisper. "Now he's not the same person anymore." A coldness spread through the room. "I was there the night he disappeared," Namjoon confessed. "He told me he found the real reason behind the contract we signed in 2013. Not the company version, the other one." Jimin blinked. "The what?" "The Blood Moon Pact," Namjoon said, and the name hung in the air like smoke. He paced the room, each step weighted with something ancient and unresolved. It wasn't just a metaphor, it was a binding, a ritual, something to ensure eternal fame, loyalty, unity, at a cost. "That's insane," Taehyung muttered, but his voice trembled. Is it?" Namjoon shot back. "Haven't you ever wondered how everything aligned so perfectly? How we survived scandals, accidents, corporate betrayal? How we broke records that mathematically shouldn't have been possible?" "You think we sold something?" Jimin asked. "No." Namjoon looked him in the eye. "We gave something, willingly, but none of us remembered doing it. That was part of the deal." Taehyung laughed bitterly. "This is ridiculous." "Then explain this." Namjoon tossed a black notebook onto the mixing table. The cover was old, cracked, with a sigil embossed into the leather one Jimin instantly recognized but couldn't place. He reached for it, but Namjoon's hand slammed down. "Don't touch it unless you want it to remember you too." Jimin recoiled. "What is it?" "It's Jungkook's journal, the one he kept before he disappeared." Taehyung grabbed it anyway, flipping it open. His eyes scanned the pages, sketches of eyes, symbols, lyrics rewritten in Latin, entire entries crossed out with blood-red ink. Then one phrase, written over and over. "They are already here." "Who?" Taehyung whispered. Namjoon didn't answer. He just turned to the window. "They call themselves the Architects. They don't age, they don't bleed, and they never let their chosen ones go." A thud came from the hallway. All three froze. Then another. Footsteps. Jimin's heart pounded. Namjoon gestured for silence, and they moved quickly, lights off. Door locked, breaths held. A shadow passed the frosted glass. The door handle jiggled. Jimin couldn't stop shaking. Every muscle screamed to run, but he stood still, staring at the door like it might explode. Then, a voice. "Hyung," it said softly. Familiar. Broken. "Jungkook?" But when the door opened, nothing. No one there. Just a black feather. Jimin stepped forward, shaking, as he picked it up. The air around it pulsed like it was alive. His fingers brushed it, and suddenly, his ears rang with static and a scream that didn't belong to this world. He fell to his knees, gasping. Namjoon pulled him back. "It's a marker," he said. "He left it for you." "For what?" Jimin rasped. "For the next step." The following morning, the fandom was in chaos again. A second voice note leaked, this time in reverse audio. Fans decrypted it within hours. What it said stunned even the most skeptical. "The truth is buried under the lake. The pact was sealed in blood. If you remember me, they'll come for you too." By noon, dispatch drones surrounded Big Hit's building. Security doubled. Comment sections exploded with panic and disbelief. And for the first time in a decade, all official BTS channels went dark. Inside the dorms, Jimin sat alone with Jungkook's journal. He traced the sigil on the cover again and again. Then he opened the last page. It was blank, except for a single date written in black ink. August 31, 2025. Jimin's birthday. And below it written in Korean, "On that night, one must choose between memory and madness." "Burn it," Yoongi said, his voice flat as stone. "That journal. Burn it now, before it takes more than it already has." The room went dead silent. The only sound was the quiet hiss of the electric kettle in the corner. water just about to boil. Jimin stared at Yoongi across the table, the black leather-bound book between them like a cursed artifact pulled from a grave. "I can't," Jimin said, voice low but defiant. "It's the only piece of Jungkook we have." "That's not Jungkook." Yoongi stepped closer, eyes sharp, jaw tense. That thing, whatever left this, wasn't him anymore. Namjoon exhaled, his fingers rubbing the bridge of his nose. "We don't even know what it is, but it's clearly left a trail." Jimin didn't find that feather by accident. The architects want us to follow the path. Taehyung sat hunched in the corner, hoodie over his head, eyes locked on his phone screen as he scrolled through the army forums that were now a digital war zone. Conspiracy theories were multiplying by the second. Jungkook Lives was banned on 4 platforms within the hour. Leaked photos were circulating, blurry and fragmented, claiming sightings in obscure places, an abandoned hotel in Busan, a church in Prague, a cave in Iceland. None confirmed, all impossible. But one message kept repeating, in different languages, different accounts, even in fan art captions and innocuous tweets. "They remember. He remembers. Do you?" Taehyung muttered without looking up. "It's spreading," Jimin stood. "Then we need to find him before they do. Or before he becomes one of them completely." Yoongi snapped. "You think this is some treasure hunt? Like we're gonna solve this with riddles and maps? Jungkook didn't leave us breadcrumbs, he left warnings. He knew what this was. He begged us not to look." Namjoon's voice was cold steel. "And we ignored him, like we always do when we don't understand something." Jimin's knuckles whitened around the journal. "I'm not letting him die twice." The kettle clicked off. Silence again. Yoongi sighed, sitting down heavily. "You remember what happened to Hoseok, right?" Jimin looked away. No one had seen Hoseok in over 3 months. The official statement said he was on extended medical leave due to exhaustion. But Jimin had visited his apartment a week ago. It was trashed. Smashed mirrors, black wax melted into the carpet, strange markings etched into the walls, and one haunting message scrawled in red lipstick on the bathroom mirror. "He showed me the lake. The lake." Jimin's fingers twitched. He opened Jungkook's journal again, flipping back to the entry with the crude drawing of a lake, serpentine and black, with trees that looked like they were bleeding. "The truth is buried under the lake," he said aloud, quoting the second voice note. "Lake of what?" Taehyung asked, now fully alert. Namjoon pulled out his laptop, tapping rapidly. "He always loved that spot, remember? The one we filmed that shoot at in 2018 in Gyeonggi-do, the forest lake." Yoongi shook his head. "If it's that obvious, it's a trap." Taehyung stood now, pacing. "So what? We sit and wait for another feather to show up? Another voice note to drop? This isn't a horror movie, we don't get infinite chances." A sharp knock on the door silenced them all. Not a knock exactly, more like tapping, rhythmic, deliberate. 3 slow taps. A pause. 3 again. Jimin's heart froze. He'd heard it before. That exact pattern. So had Jungkook. He was the one who used to knock like that. Taehyung moved first. Quiet as breath, he approached the door. Eyes wide, every step hesitant. He opened it fast. No one there, except a single USB drive hanging from a red string tied to the doorknob. Namjoon grabbed it and plugged it into his laptop without a word. A single file appeared. "Do you remember me, MP4?" He clicked. The screen went black, then static, then Jungkook, half lit in what looked like a tunnel, breathing hard, face thinner, eyes wild, but unmistakably him. "If you're watching this," he said, "they know. They know you've seen the journal. They know you remember. That's the trigger." He coughed, something dark dribbling from his lip. "There's no going back now." The camera shifted. The angle changed. Behind him, water. Thick, dark, rippling unnaturally. Trees. No wind. No birds. Just a silence so deep it made the static feel comforting. "I buried it under the old sycamore," Jungkook whispered. "Everything. The original contract. The real one. The one they made us forget." He paused, then looked straight into the camera. "I'm not me anymore. Not fully. But if I can hold on long enough, if I can remember who I was, maybe we can end it. Maybe we can break the pact." The video glitched. A flash of something, an eye. Massive, pulsing, then darkness again. Then one last frame, frozen, Jungkook's face, and a single line of text. Meet me before the blood moon. The file corrupted itself seconds later. The drive burned hot in Namjoon's palm. Jimin looked up. When's the next blood moon? Namjoon typed furiously, then stopped. His face went pale. August 31. Jimin didn't speak. He didn't need to. His birthday. Outside, the city buzzed like it always did, unaware that reality had just cracked at its edges. But inside that room, time had stopped. The pact wasn't metaphor anymore. It was flesh, memory, madness, and it was waiting for them to make a choice. That night, Jimin dreamed of the lake, of black feathers falling like snow, of Jungkook standing waist-deep in the water, eyes full of something ancient, something not entirely human. Come find me, he whispered in the dream. Then, the water turned red. You want us to do what? Jin's voice cracked against the tension in the room, bouncing off the high windows of their temporary safe house in Gangwon. Dig up the goddamn pass like it won't swallow us whole? Jimin didn't flinch. He hadn't blinked in nearly 30 seconds. His hands were clenched on the table, eyes red from lack of sleep. We have 3 days until the blood moon. 3. We go to the lake. We find the sycamore. We dig. Yoongi exhaled sharply and slammed a cup down on the counter, shattering it. You think you're the only one losing sleep over this? The only one seeing things? He pointed at his temple. I've been hearing his voice in my dreams, Jimin. Every night since that USB showed up. You don't think I want to find him? You don't think I'd trade every stage we've ever stood on just to hug that kid one more time? Namjoon stood by the window, back rigid, one hand pressed to the glass as he watched the wind bend the trees outside. Then we need to move before they know what we're planning. Every minute we talk, they listen. They're in the systems now. Phones, cameras, maybe even fan sites. They've twisted the fandom into something unrecognizable. Taehyung scrolled through his phone, then tossed it across the room. Armies are turning on each other. Debates about whether Jungkook's alive, if we're behind it. They're even accusing Hybe of staging his death for publicity. They're not wrong to question, Jin muttered darkly. We trained them to question. We told them to love themselves. And now look, those same voices are echoing something that was never meant to be spoken. Jimin stood. We go to the lake. Tonight. Silence. Yoongi rubbed his face, exhausted. Then we need to be ready. All of us. Namjoon's eyes darkened. Not all of us will make it back. Hours later, the black van cut through the twisted mountain roads, headlights slicing shadows into the mist. No one spoke. Jimin sat with Jungkook's journal in his lap, thumbing through it again, searching for anything they might have missed. One page caught his eye, a smear of something that wasn't ink, not quite blood. Below it, scribbled like a dying confession, were the words, I remember the boy with no shadow. He closed the book. His own reflection in the van window was barely visible. They reached the lake, just past midnight. It hadn't changed. Still beautiful. Still deadly. The moonlight shimmered on its surface, too perfect. The trees bowed in unnatural angles, as though in prayer. A cold wind met them. Not quite wind, but something that felt like breath on their necks. Namjoon unfolded the map Jungkook had encoded within a drawing. Yoongi had decrypted it that morning. The sycamore was real. A single, ancient tree growing alone on the eastern bank, far from the tourist trail. Jimin walked first. His feet crunched through wet leaves, heart beating a drumbeat that felt older than his body. They found the sycamore within minutes. It stood crooked, like something ashamed to still exist. Its bark was gray and peeling, with gashes deep in the wood like claw marks. And at its base, a patch of disturbed earth. Taehyung was already moving, shovel in hand. We dig fast, in and out. They dug in silence. Then, metal. Jin dropped to his knees, brushing away the dirt with trembling hands. A small black box emerged, locked with a sigil none of them recognized. Jimin stared. The sigil matched the one on Jungkook's journal. A perfect mirror. Open it, he whispered. Yoongi knelt beside it, fingers shaking. It's warm. Namjoon took out a small ceremonial blade, the one Jungkook had left behind in his studio locker. Blood, unlocks blood," he murmured. He pricked his finger and let the blood drip onto the lock. Click. The box opened. Inside, papers, old and yellowed, a voice recorder, a ring black as obsidian, pulsing faintly, and a single Polaroid of all 7 of them. But something was wrong. The background was the same lake, but there were 8 shadows. "Who's that?" Jin asked, voice cracking. Jimin didn't answer. He pressed play on the voice recorder. Static. Then Jungkook's voice, stronger, clearer, but full of dread. "I found the truth. The architects weren't just watching. They were always inside the pact. One of them walked among us. From the beginning. You won't believe who." The tape cut off with a scream, metal scraping, then silence. "Play it again," Taehyung demanded, but the recorder melted in Jimin's hand, literally melted, liquefying into black liquid that sizzled as it hit the dirt. Jimin's breath caught. "They know we're here." Namjoon stood, eyes scanning the trees. "It's not safe. We have what we need. Let's move." A figure stepped out of the trees. Hoseok, or someone wearing his face. His eyes were black, not dark, black, pure void. No whites, no irises, just endless night. "Hyung," he said to Jimin, voice hollow. "Ho-Hobi." Jimin stepped forward. "Don't," Yoongi warned. "That's not him." But Jimin couldn't stop. He was already walking. Hoseok looked the same walk, same smile, even the way he tilted his head. But the aura was wrong. The warmth was gone. He radiated cold. "You shouldn't have remembered," Hoseok whispered. "Now you all belong to us." Behind him, the trees began to move. No, not trees. People. Hundreds. Faces familiar. Dancers. Trainees. Former idols. All silent. All with black eyes. "The lake took them," Namjoon whispered. "The pact keeps feeding." Jimin turned to run, but Hoseok grabbed his wrist, and then everything went black. When Jimin opened his eyes, he was alone. In a studio. Familiar. His studio. Bright morning sunlight streamed through the windows. His phone buzzed. A message from Jungkook. "Hyung, rehearsals at 3, don't be late." He blinked. No wounds. No journal. No blood moon. Just normal. Had it all been a dream? The door opened. Jungkook stepped in, smiling. But behind that smile, those same black eyes. "Hyung, what's with that look? You okay?" Jungkook's voice was casual. Light. Like nothing was wrong. Like none of the last 72 hours had happened. Like there was no lake, no blood pact, no screaming tape recorder melting in their hands. Like he hadn't vanished for months and sent his own voice note from hell. Jimin didn't answer right away. His throat was dry. His heart pounded behind his ribs like a prisoner begging to be let out. He stared at Jungkook, at the flawless skin, the neat hair, the eyes. Those eyes. Still black. Not the warm brown he knew. The ones that used to wrinkle with mischief. The ones that dimmed only when Jungkook felt truly broken. No. These were the void. Still. Watching. Mocking. Jimin forced a breath. "Where's everyone else?" Jungkook smiled, walking past him into the studio. "Running late. You know how they are." He sat down at the piano, fingers gliding effortlessly across the keys. A familiar melody. Spring day. Slower. Almost mournful. It echoed around the studio like a funeral hymn. Jimin felt like the floor might vanish beneath him. He checked his phone again. No missed calls. No group chat. No headlines. No chaos. It was August 29, 2 days before the blood moon. And it was like the world had been rewound and scrubbed clean. "Come sit," Jungkook said, not looking up. "You still remember the harmony, right?" Jimin hesitated. He looked down at his hands. No cuts, no dirt, no blood, no journal. And yet something deep inside, something primal, screamed wrong. Jimin sat slowly on the bench beside him. "Where have you been?" Jungkook chuckled softly. "What do you mean? I saw you yesterday." "No," Jimin said firmly. "You didn't. I haven't seen you in 7 months." Jungkook stopped playing. The note hung in the air like a held breath. Then he looked up, eyes boring into Jimin's. "You remember." Not a question. A statement. And just like that, the illusion broke. The studio flickered. For half a second, the walls bled. The windows shattered inward with no sound. The piano keys turned to bone, then back. The world snapped into normal like a rubber band. But Jimin had seen it. Jungkook stood. You weren't supposed to hold on to it. The lake was supposed to take that from you. You're not Jungkook, Jimin said, voice shaking. Where is he? Jungkook tilted his head. I am what's left. Jimin backed away, reaching for the door, but it was gone. The door was gone. There was only wall where it used to be. You can't leave now, Jungkook said gently. Not until it's finished. What is it? Jimin shouted. What do you want from me? From us? Jungkook walked slowly toward him, step by step. The pact wasn't just about fame, Jimin. It was about memory, sacrifice. You traded part of your soul to carry the voice of millions. And they listened. They always listen. But now, the pact is ending. The architects want a new offering. Jimin's voice cracked. Who? You. Jimin threw the stool at him. Jungkook didn't flinch. It passed through his body like smoke. Outside, the blood moon had already risen. Days early, the clock on the wall ticked backwards. And then, with a sudden crash, the mirror in the corner shattered, and Taehyung's face appeared through it, screaming. Wake up! Jimin shot up, gasping. He was lying on the floor of a hospital room. Wires on his chest, oxygen mask hanging to the side. His throat burned. His body ached like it had been crushed and rebuilt. Namjoon stood over him, eyes wide with relief. He's awake! He's awake! Taehyung burst into the room behind him, hair soaked with sweat, eyes bloodshot. Don't ever do that again, Park Jimin. You scared the shit out of us. Jimin coughed. What happened? Namjoon crouched beside him. You went under. Deep. After that thing. At the lake. You collapsed. No pulse for 28 seconds. Yoongi entered slowly, eyes trained on him. You were gone, Jimin. We thought you... I saw him, Jimin said. I was with him. The room stilled. He's still in there. In the pact. It's not finished. Jin leaned against the doorframe, bandage on his forehead. Then what are we supposed to do now? Let this thing swallow us one by one? No, Jimin whispered, sitting up despite the searing pain in his back. We end it. Namjoon frowned. How? Jimin looked down. In his hand clenched without knowing was the black obsidian ring from the box. It hadn't been a dream. The ring, Jimin whispered. It's the key, Jungkook said. Someone among us has always been part of them. Since the beginning. One of us. The ring pulsed. Yoongi stepped back. You're saying one of us is an architect? No, Jimin said. I'm saying one of us was chosen by them to bring this full circle. A vessel. A gate. They all looked at each other. Namjoon. Yoongi. Jin. Taehyung. Even Jimin himself. But it was Jin who said it first. Where's Hobie? Everyone froze. Jimin's voice dropped to a whisper. We left him behind. The hospital room was suffocating. Yoongi gripped the edge of the metal bed frame so tightly his knuckles went white. We didn't leave him. He walked into the lake. Jin turned sharply. He walked in because he thought he could stop it. We didn't try to follow him. Namjoon's voice was unusually quiet. We didn't know what we were seeing. None of us did. We thought he was sacrificing himself. Jimin cut in, voice brittle. To save us? He was already changing, Yoongi muttered. We saw it in his eyes. You felt it too. But what if he didn't drown? Taehyung stepped forward, eyes blazing. What if he was taken? Like Jungkook, like everyone else who disappeared. Jin let out a bitter laugh, short and sharp. Then what? We go back to the lake? We offer ourselves up one by one and hope someone makes it out? Namjoon rubbed his forehead, tension carved into every line of his face. No. If Hoseok's still alive, then he's the gate. Jimin froze. The vessel. Namjoon nodded. The pact needed one of us to carry the bond. We assumed it was Jungkook, but it was Hobie all along. Yoongi stepped back. That means he's not trapped. Jimin looked at him. No, that means he's guarding the trap, Taehyung whispered. So what do we do? Namjoon looked at Jimin. You saw the ring. It responded to you. I didn't choose it, Jimin said, still staring at the black stone in his palm. It was cold again now, but something inside it stirred like a heartbeat underwater. It just came With me, we end the pact, Namjoon said. And to do that, we need to confront the one who carries it. Jin took a step toward the door. Then let's go. But Yoongi didn't move. He was staring out the window, face pale. Guys, he said slowly, you need to see this. They all crowded behind him, pressing up to the glass. Outside the hospital, the city should have been bustling. Seoul never truly slept. But now it was. Still. Too still. No cars. No people. No lights from the buildings. Just silence. And above them the blood moon hung high. Days too early, casting everything in a dim crimson wash. Taehyung whispered, "This isn't real. It's a construct," Namjoon said. "We're not fully back yet. We're still inside." "Inside what?" Jin asked. "The pact," Jimin said. Yoongi turned to him. "Then where's the exit?" Jimin met his eyes. "Wherever Hoseok is." They left the hospital with only what they had. Phones didn't work. No signal, no GPS. The streets were empty like a forgotten film set. Doors were locked, windows painted over. Every corner they turned led them back to the same intersection, over and over. Like the city was breathing them in and spitting them back out. Namjoon stopped. "We're being funneled." Jin swore under his breath. "Like cattle." Then, in the distance music, faint, echoing, a melody they knew like their own names. Boy with love, but twisted, slowed, warped, notes falling in on themselves like collapsing stars. It came from the subway tunnel nearby, dark and pulsing with crimson light. Without a word, Jimin walked toward it. They followed. The underground was worse. Posters of them lined the walls, but not the way they remembered. Their eyes were gouged out, their mouths twisted in silent screams. The walls were wet, breathing. Every step echoed like it was being recorded, played back, and reversed at the same time. Jimin turned a corner and there he was, Hoseok, standing on the tracks. It looked normal, same jacket he wore the day he disappeared, same soft smile. But when he turned, his eyes weren't black. They were glowing gold. "Young," Jimin called, voice trembling. Hoseok didn't respond, just smiled. "Why didn't you come back?" Yoongi stepped beside Jimin, pain on his face. Hoseok finally spoke. His voice was almost serene. "Because I remembered. I remembered everything we forgot, everything we agreed to forget." Namjoon stepped forward. "You signed the pact willingly, didn't you?" Hoseok nodded. "We all did. But I remembered first. That's why the architects chose me." Jin's voice was razor sharp. "So you betrayed us?" "No," Hoseok said. "I protected you. They would have taken you all the moment the pact began to fade. I gave myself instead." "Then why are we still trapped?" Taehyung shouted. Hoseok looked at Jimin. "Because he remembered too much. He pulled you all back in. You were supposed to let go." "I'm not letting go of you," Jimin said, stepping closer. "We can still leave together." "You don't understand," Hoseok whispered. "This isn't about memory. It's about what we gave them. Our songs, our voices, our souls. That's what kept the fandom alive. That's what made the world listen." Namjoon stepped between them. "Then take it back. We don't want it anymore. We'll give them the fame, the legacy, all of it." "They don't want the fame," Hoseok said. "They want the echo. What lasts when we're gone. The resonance. That's what they feed on." The ground trembled. The tunnel began to collapse inward, walls buckling, lights exploding. Jimin ran toward Hoseok, grabbing his arm. "Then help us break it." "I can't," Hoseok said, voice cracking. "But you can." He pressed the black ring in Jimin's palm. "Go to the stage. The one we first stood on. The original." "You mean?" Jimin's eyes widened. "That tiny garage club in Daegu?" Hoseok nodded, already fading. His body dissolving into gold dust. "The echo started there," he said. "End it where it began." And then he was gone. Jimin collapsed to the ground, ring in his hand, tears streaming down his face. Yoongi knelt beside him. "He bought us time." Namjoon's voice was grave. "Then let's not waste it." Behind them, the tunnel began to close forever. Ahead, the way out appeared. Jimin looked back one last time. Where Hoseok had stood, only a feather remained. Not black this time, but white. The sun had no warmth. They stood in front of the rusted building, a squat brick structure buried between glass towers in Daegu, the place where it had all begun. Jimin stared at it, like it might disappear if he blinked. The small garage venue looked smaller than he remembered, but somehow heavier, like it had absorbed everything they had poured into it over the years. Sweat, blood, dreams, betrayals. Jin let out a breath. This place shouldn't exist anymore. They tore it down years ago. Namjoon stepped forward. We're not in their world anymore. Yoongi narrowed his eyes at the flickering signage above the door. This is memory. Echo. Jimin corrected. This is the echo. Taehyung reached for the rusted handle and yanked the door open. Dust poured out, thick and choking. Inside, the air was heavy with the smell of old wood, decaying fabric, and something sweet, metallic blood, maybe, or something worse. The room was bathed in a pale, flickering light. No bulbs, no power, just light. They walked in together. Rows of empty chairs faced the stage, which still held the old mic stand and the scuffed drum kit Jungkook used to sit behind during rehearsals when he was too shy to dance in front. Jimin felt every step in his bones. This was where they had first shared their voices with strangers. This was where the pact had heard them. Jin walked toward the stage. You think this is it? The real anchor? Jimin stared at the mic. No, it's the first anchor. Namjoon placed the black ring on the amp beside the mic. Instantly, the room shifted. The chairs filled. Rows of faceless figures sat silently, heads tilted, watching. Their eyes were hollow, their mouths sewn shut. Yet Jimin could feel the hunger radiating from them. The architects. The room dimmed, and a voice echoed from the shadows above. You returned to silence, what should never have been heard. Jimin stepped onto the stage. We never asked for this. You offered, you gave us the path. You chose the path, the voice corrected. You begged for it, on your knees, every one of you. The crowd of shadows leaned forward as one. Yoongi's voice was sharp. We were kids, desperate kids. That wasn't consent. The voice laughed cold, rattling, infinite. There is no age requirement for desperation. It makes the finest offerings. The ring began to glow on the amp. Namjoon whispered, the ritual. It's starting. Taehyung suddenly clutched his chest. I can't breathe. Jin rushed to him, supporting his weight. Taehyung's skin was turning pale, gray. They're draining him, Jimin said. They're trying to feed. Jungkook's voice rang out suddenly clear, terrified, from everywhere at once. Don't sing. Not yet. The shadows recoiled, twitching. Some hissed. Others cracked their necks at impossible angles. Jungkook appeared at the back of the room, drenched, barefoot, wearing the same clothes he had on in the video message. His body flickered between human and something else. Not monstrous, not demonic, but empty. Like a shell filled with static. Hyung, he whispered to Jimin, if you sing, they'll take everything. Jimin stepped off the stage toward him. Then what do we do? Jungkook looked at the ring, the crowd, the mic. We rewrite the echo. Namjoon blinked. What the hell does that mean? The echo feeds on what you gave it, Jungkook said. It feeds on your fear, your anger, your need to be heard. You have to give it something else, something you never gave them. Yoongi stepped forward, hands shaking. What didn't we give them? We gave them everything. Not everything, Jimin said, suddenly realizing. Our truth, Jungkook answered. Unfiltered, ugly. The parts that never made it into the songs. The nights no one saw. The fractures behind the smiles. Jimin turned to the mic. His chest felt tight. His voice, locked behind years of studio perfection and choreography, felt like it was being asked to bleed. He took the mic in his hand. The ring pulsed beside him. And then he began, not to sing, but to speak. He spoke about the night he first thought of quitting. The first time the cheers of a stadium felt deafening in the worst way. The guilt of success. The shame of not always believing the message they shared. The way he used to cry in hotel bathrooms with the water running so no one would hear. The dream he had where none of them ever met, and he woke up relieved for just 1 second. Every word echoed through the room. Every truth struck the shadows like a wound. Yoongi joined him next, then Jin, then Namjoon, then Taehyung. Each one stepping up, one by one, taking the mic, speaking their truth. Jungkook watched from the edge of the light, trembling. As they spoke, The faceless crowd began to unravel. One by one, they disappeared, or screamed silently and melted into smoke. The walls of the garage cracked. Light poured in from above, not red, but golden, soft, healing. Jimin turned to Jungkook. "Now, it's your turn." Jungkook shook his head. "I don't have anything left." "You do," Jimin said, walking toward him. "You survived. That's not nothing." Jungkook took a step onto the stage. He reached for the mic. His hand passed through it. "I'm not fully here," he whispered. "I'm still theirs." "No," Jimin said. "You're ours." He took Jungkook's hand, pressed it to his chest. "Speak, Kook." Jungkook closed his eyes. "I was afraid you'd forget me. That's what I feared most. Not death, not pain, but being forgotten, being replaced." His voice cracked. "And I hated myself for needing you all so much." The ring shattered. The shadows screamed one final time. The garage exploded into white. And then, silence. Jimin opened his eyes. He was back in the dorm. Morning light filtered through the curtains. A knock at the door. This time, it was soft, human. He opened it. Jungkook stood there, soaked in rain, shivering. "Hyung," he said, "I don't know where I've been." Jimin pulled him into a hug, burying his face in his shoulder, the tears already falling. "I don't care," Jimin whispered. "You're home." And for the first time in months, the echo was silent. The sound of the rain against the dorm windows should have been comforting, but it wasn't. Not anymore. Jungkook sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, eyes distant. Not haunted exactly, but hollow. The kind of emptiness that can't be filled by words or warmth. His skin looked pale under the dim lights. His lips chapped. Jimin hadn't let him out of his sight for more than a few minutes since he came back. He watched him now from the kitchen counter, mug of untouched tea cradled in his hands. "You haven't said anything," Jimin said gently. Jungkook didn't respond. Namjoon leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "We can't keep pretending this is over." Yoongi's voice, low and cold, came from the hallway. "It's not." Taehyung looked up from where he sat on the floor, back against the wall, head tilted like he was trying to decode the silence. "Then what is it? A pause? A trick?" Jin walked in, closing the front door behind him. He tossed his soaked jacket onto the hanger and ran a hand through his dripping hair. "The blood moon's still in the sky." Namjoon blinked. "What? That's not possible." "I saw it with my own eyes," Jin replied. "Clear as day. It's still there." Jimin looked at Jungkook, panic swelling again. "You said it was over. We ended it." Jungkook finally moved, turning his head slowly to meet Jimin's eyes. His voice was hoarse, like it had been used up somewhere far away. "We ended our pact, not theirs." "What do you mean, theirs?" Yoongi asked. Jungkook closed his eyes. "There are others." The room went silent. Namjoon straightened. "Others like us?" "No," Jungkook said quietly. "Others like them." Taehyung stood slowly, voice tense. "The architects?" "They're not alone," Jungkook whispered. "The pact wasn't just made with them. It was part of a larger system. Interconnected offerings. Across countries. Across decades. We were just one thread." Jin cursed under his breath. "So this wasn't about us from the start?" "No," Jungkook said, shaking. "But we became the loudest echo, the most powerful." Namjoon stepped closer, tension sharp in his jaw. "So what now? What do they want from us now?" Jungkook looked at the ring shards Jimin had placed on the coffee table. "They want silence, true silence, the kind that comes after the last note dies." Jimin set his cup down and walked to him. "You're not making sense. What does that mean?" Jungkook's eyes locked on his. "They want the end. Of all of it." Yoongi stared. "The end of BTS?" "No," Jungkook said. "The end of what BTS created. The resonance, the belief, the movement. The idea that love and hope and connection through music could save people. They're unraveling it all, erasing us from inside out." Jin's face pallid. "Armies." Taehyung's eyes widened. "No," Jungkook nodded. "They're going after them, quietly, subtly, turning them, fragmenting them, one voice at a time." Jimin's heart dropped. "That's why everything's been so toxic lately. The fan wars, the betrayals, the leaks, the hatred. It didn't feel like them, because it wasn't, Namjoon whispered. It was the architects, using the echo. Jin's fist slammed into the wall. Then what the hell do we do now? We can't protect millions of people. Yoongi didn't speak for a long moment. Then he looked at Jungkook. You said we ended our pact, but that wasn't the only one, was it? Jungkook shook his head. The first pact wasn't made by us. Everyone stared. Namjoon spoke slowly. Who then? Jungkook's voice was like sand. Seo Taiji. Silence dropped like a bomb. Jimin swallowed hard. The legends? The first idols? They made the first pact, Jungkook said. In the 90s. They summoned something to break the silence of a censored nation. And it worked. Too well. That resonance grew and evolved. It latched onto new generations, new voices. And every generation made a new offering, knowingly or not. Yoongi sat down heavily. We're the latest offering. Jin looked like he was going to be sick. And the last? Jungkook nodded. Taehyung walked to the window, pulling the curtain aside. The sky outside was still dark. And there, hanging low and pulsing, was the blood moon. Still present. Still watching. Namjoon's voice cracked. How do we stop it? Jungkook looked down. We go to them. Jimin frowned. Go to who? Jungkook looked up. Seo Taiji. HOTG. OD Shinhwa. TVXQ. Big Bang. Every name that ever echoed louder than it should have. They're the keepers now. And they know. You're saying they're still in it, Yoongi said. Still bound. Jungkook nodded. Some tried to get out. Some succeeded. Most didn't. But if we can bring them together, we can dismantle the network from within. Sever every thread. One voice won't stop the echo. But all of us might. Namjoon finished. Jin sat down beside Jungkook, rubbing his temples. You're talking about a full convergence. Across generations. You think they'll even talk to us? They will, Jungkook said. Because the architects are coming for them too. Yoongi stood, determination rising like fire. Then we don't wait. We find them. Tonight. Namjoon nodded, already pulling out his phone. I'll reach out to the people I trust. Quietly. No press, no fans, no handlers. Taehyung looked at Jungkook. And if they say no? Jungkook's voice dropped to a whisper. Then they're already gone. The room fell into motion. Each of them taking on tasks, making calls, packing what they could. Jimin stayed by Jungkook's side. You should rest, he said softly. I can't, Jungkook replied. Every time I close my eyes, I see them. Jimin took his hand. Then we won't let you sleep alone. Jungkook looked at him, his eyes softer now. Human again. I missed you. I never stopped looking for you, Jimin whispered. A moment passed. Then two. Outside, the rain finally stopped. But the moon above was still red. The limousine was silent. Not the luxurious kind of silence, but the suffocating one. The kind that clings to your skin and seeps into your lungs. No music played. No one spoke. Every streetlight they passed under flickered. Not out of electrical failure, this was something else. Something watching. Something feeding. Jungkook sat between Jimin and Namjoon, staring blankly out the window as if he were trying to decode the city's patterns. The pulse of the buildings, the whispers in the street gutters. His hand gripped the black velvet box in his lap, the one that now held the ring fragments, each of them humming faintly like dying stars. Jin finally broke the silence. I still don't trust them. Namjoon didn't look away from the road. We don't have to trust them. We just have to get them to listen. Yoongi scoffed. That's assuming they aren't already compromised. We'll know when we see them, Taehyung said from the front seat, his voice uncharacteristically low. Eyes don't lie. Not anymore. The car pulled into the underground lot of an abandoned performance hall on the edge of the Han River. Once a thriving stage in the late 90s, it had long since been condemned and gutted, its bones left behind like a forgotten giant. It was perfect, neutral, forgotten by the public, untouched by surveillance. Or so they hoped. Jimin stepped out first. His boots echoed off the cracked concrete. The air was heavy, but not stale-charged. The others followed, their footsteps forming a grim procession as they made their way through the rusted doors and into the darkness. Inside, the main hall was lit by a single spotlight, and in its glow stood a figure, Sao Ti. He looked older, of course. The years had touched him, but gently. His presence, however, was the same towering, magnetic, unknowable. He stood with his hands folded, eyes unreadable. Behind him, slowly stepping into the light, were others. Eunjiwon, Kangta, G-Dragon, Yoonyo, Jaejung, Tableau, and more. Legends, idols, survivors. Namjoon stepped forward. Thank you for coming. Seo Taiji didn't smile.
We didn't come for you.
Yoongi narrowed his eyes. Then why did you come? We came for them, Taiji said, looking at Jungkook. Silence again. Jungkook stared back. You made the first pact. No, G-Dragon replied, stepping beside Taiji. We inherited it, just like you did. But you knew, Jimin said. You knew, and you said nothing. Yoongi-won folded his arms. What would we have told you? That the stage steals your name and gives it to shadows? That screaming fans sometimes scream because they're possessed? Tableau spoke next. You wouldn't have believed us. I would have, Namjoon said quietly. Seo Taiji stepped forward. We tried to end it. In different ways. Some walked away, some imploded, some disappeared, and some of us. He glanced at Yoonho. We tried to fight, but the architects aren't beings. They're systems. They live in the way people watch, consume, devour. You can't kill that. You can only weaken it. Jungkook held up the velvet box. Then help us, before the blood moon completes its cycle. Taiji stared at the box, the glow leaking through the seams. You brought the ring. Jimin looked between them. You've seen it before, G-Dragon answered. We each had one, given the moment we debuted. But we didn't realize what they were until it was too late. Jaehyung stepped forward, his voice shaking slightly. I smashed mine in 2010. That's when the voices started. Namjoon stepped closer to the group of legends. What if we bring the fragments together? Reforge them not as a key, but as a lock? Seo Taiji looked at him. And bind the echo? Yoongi nodded. Silence it forever. But there's a cost, Tableau warned. There's always a cost. Taehyung's voice was steel. Tell us. Taiji looked at Jungkook. One of you must take the final echo into themselves. Jin's face darkened.
You're asking for a sacrifice.
No, Taiji said. We're asking for a guardian. Everyone turned to Jungkook. No, Jimin said immediately. He's been through enough. Namjoon stepped forward. He's already the closest to it. He survived their possession. He came back. Jungkook stood tall now, the shadows under his eyes etched like war paint. If I do this, will they stop? No, Seo Taiji said, solemn. But they'll sleep. Maybe for a generation. Maybe for longer. And in that time, the industry can rebuild. Without them. Without echoes. Taehyung walked up to Jungkook, eyes red. You're not doing this alone. Jungkook smiled faintly. Yes, I am. Jimin grabbed his hand. No, we find another way. There is no other way, Jungkook whispered. And you know it. He looked at all of them now. His brothers, his Hyungs, the ones who had carried him when he was too broken to walk. He saw the grief in their faces, the guilt, the helpless fury. But he also saw their love. I'm not dying, he said softly. I'm becoming the lock. Seo Taiji stepped forward, holding out a chain made from his own shattered ring. Then let it be done. Jungkook placed the box on the stage floor. The others began to step forward, one by one, pulling broken pieces of their own packs from deep within coats, wallets, jewelry fragments they had hidden for years. When Jimin stepped forward, he hesitated. Then, he took off the ring he had worn on his right hand since the beginning. The one no one had ever questioned. The one he couldn't remember ever taking off. He placed it in the box. The fragments began to pulse. The stage began to hum. Jungkook stepped into the center. Jin looked away. Yoongi turned his back. Namjoon stood still, trembling. Taehyung reached out, then dropped his hand. Jimin didn't move. Jungkook looked at him one last time. Thank you, he whispered, for remembering me. And then the light consumed him. A sound like 1,000 concerts ending at once filled the room. And when it cleared, the blood moon was gone. And so was Jungkook. The silence was immediate and vast. Not a peaceful silence, but an absence. An echo vacuum. Jimin couldn't hear his own heartbeat, couldn't hear the breath trembling in his chest. The walls of the old performance hall no longer groaned or creaked. The air no longer moved. It was like the universe itself had held its breath and simply stopped. Jungkook was gone, not fallen, not vanished into the void, just gone, like he'd been unmade. Jimin stood frozen at the edge of the stage, staring at the spot where Jungkook had been, his mind trying to process something it wasn't built to understand. 1 second, the boy he loved like blood had been standing there. The next light, fractured, blinding, warm, then emptiness. He couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. Namjoon touched his shoulder. Jimin? But Jimin pulled away. His body reacted before his brain did. He dropped to his knees where the velvet box had rested and started clawing at the floor. Desperation replaced reason. He scraped until his nails split, until blood mixed with dust and wood chips, until Jin had to physically pull him back. He promised, Jimin screamed, fighting him. He promised he wasn't dying. Yoongi stepped down from the shadows of the balcony. His face was blank, unreadable, but his hands were trembling. He's not dead, he said almost to himself. He's not dead. He said he'd be the lock. Then why can't I feel him? Jimin cried, breaking from Jin's arms and standing.
He was always there, in my chest, even when he was gone. I could feel him.
No one had an answer. Taehyung sat slumped against the stage stairs, staring up at the now dark ceiling. I saw the moon vanish, he murmured. Like someone flipped a switch. 1 second it was there. The next, gone. Like it had never existed. Namjoon turned to Seo Taiji, voice strained. Is that it then? Is it really over? Taiji nodded slowly. For now, the echoes will fade. The architects won't return while the lock remains sealed. Jin's voice was low, cutting. And how long before it cracks again? A decade? A year? No one knows, G-Dragon answered. But Jungkook bought the world time. Time. The word felt cruel. Yoongi lit a cigarette he didn't remember having. His hands shook as he did it. We should have stopped this before it ever reached him. Jae-jung looked over at him. None of us ever really had control. We were just instruments. We were boys, Taehyung snapped suddenly. All of us. Kids who just wanted to sing. And we were handed hell wrapped in confetti. Seo Taiji stepped forward. The industry will change now. Slowly. But it will. There's power in what you've done. Jimin shook his head, eyes wild. Don't talk to me about power. Don't talk about victory. You all watched while this happened. You knew. Taiji looked down. We paid our price long ago, and now we've paid ours, Namjoon said, cold and final. He turned to his members. Let's go. There's nothing more to do here. They left the stage like mourners at the end of a wake. No one spoke. No one cried anymore. The tears had run dry somewhere between the screams and the silence. Outside, dawn was breaking. Real dawn. The kind they hadn't seen since before the pact reawakened. The sky was a soft bruise of color, and for the first time in what felt like eternity, the air didn't taste like static. They got into the van. No driver, no plan, no destination. Yoongi drove. No one asked where. They arrived back at the dorms just as the city was beginning to breathe again. Traffic lights blinked normally. Pedestrians crossed streets. Cafes opened. Phones buzzed with notifications that had been frozen for days. The world had reset, but their world had ended. That night, they sat around the living room, staring at nothing, until Jin finally spoke. We should tell them. Namjoon looked up. Who? The fans. Taehyung flinched. Tell them what? That Jungkook saved the world from a supernatural music god cult? Jin didn't flinch. Tell them he left to protect something. That his name, his voice is safe. That he's alive somewhere. Just not here. They'll demand proof, Yoongi said. Jimin whispered. Then we give them one last song. Everyone looked at him. Jimin stared into the candle they had lit earlier, the one that Jungkook used to tease him about because he said it smelled like lavender and loneliness. We record it, Jimin continued. We write it ourselves. No label, no producer, just us. One track, one release. We call it The Lock. Namjoon nodded slowly. And what do we say? We say goodbye, Jimin said. They recorded it that night, raw. No auto-tune, no filters. Every vocal cracked in the right places. Every lyric felt like blood. They didn't write a chorus, just a long, winding verse that passed between each of them like a confession. They didn't say Jungkook's name, but his presence soaked every second. His voice wasn't there, but his absence was. They released it without promotion. No tweet, no post, just a sudden drop. And the world heard it. Armies exploded. The lyrics were dissected. The sound was unlike anything they had done before. Too vulnerable, too bare, too painful to be fiction. Speculations flooded every platform. Some said Jungkook had left the group. Some said he had died. Some said it was a message, encrypted with secrets no one had the tools to unlock. And the fandom began to fracture again. Jimin sat alone one night, scrolling through endless comments until he couldn't feel his thumbs. He found one post, buried deep in a thread of chaotic theories. It read, "He's not gone. He's guarding the silence. Let it be quiet for once." He stared at it for a long time, then turned off his phone. The next day, Jimin walked to the Han River alone. He stood there, staring at the water. He spoke aloud. "I still feel you." No voice answered. But in the wind, something moved. Soft. Not an echo, but the memory of one. And Jimin smiled, because that too was enough. The echo returned at 2:17 a.m. Jimin was the first to hear it. He sat alone in the vocal booth of their old practice studio, one they hadn't used in nearly a year. Dust clung to the corners of the room like it had grown roots, and the piano keys had long lost their clean tone. He hadn't touched a mic in weeks. Not since the lock had been released. Not since the world decided that silence was acceptable, that maybe BTS was finished. And yet, something inside him refused to accept it. Not because of the fame, or the pressure, or the legacy, but because of a promise, a voice, a boy. Jungkook. So when the hum began soft, barely audible, like the vibrating string of a cello being played somewhere deep underground, Jimin froze. It wasn't in the room. It was inside him. He pressed his hand to his chest. It was faint, a familiar rhythm, barely there. But it was there, a heartbeat, not his own, like someone was trying to speak through the static of memory. "Namjoon," Jimin whispered, fumbling for his phone. The call went through on the first ring. "I heard it too," Namjoon said, already breathless. "What does it mean?" Jimin asked. Namjoon's voice was low. "It means the lock is failing." By 3:00 a.m., they were all in the dorm living room again except Jungkook. Yoongi paced the floor, jaw clenched. "We sealed it. We gave everything. What more do they want?" Taehyung sat on the windowsill, knees to his chest. Maybe the lock wasn't meant to last. Maybe it was a warning. Jin was silent. He hadn't said much since the release of the song. He barely spoke at all these days. He just sat there, always watching, as if waiting for something none of them could see. Namjoon placed a file on the coffee table. It started 2 weeks ago, reports of anomalies. Jimin leaned over. The file was full of fan-submitted photos, police reports, and handwritten statements. The theme was consistent. Voices in places they shouldn't be. Stadiums where no one stood. Music playing from phones that were turned off. Dreams shared by strangers in different countries, all with the same whisper. "He's not gone." Yoongi dropped into a chair, rubbing his temples. "It's Jungkook. He's trying to come back." "No," Jin said, finally speaking. "It's not him. Not anymore." Everyone turned. Jin's voice cracked. "I saw him. Last night. In my mirror." Jimin felt a chill crawl up his spine. "What do you mean?" "He was smiling," Jin whispered. "But not like him. It wasn't joy. It was hollow. As if someone had taught him how to fake it." Namjoon's face tightened. "The lock's not just failing. It's corrupting him." Taehyung looked up slowly. "If he breaks free, then they come back." Jimin finished. "The architects, the pact, the system, all of it." Namjoon took a deep breath. "Then we need to do what we swore we'd never do." Yoongi looked at him sharply. "Don't say it. We have to unseal the gate," Namjoon said. "You saw what happened the last time," Yoongi barked. "You saw what it cost." Jimin stepped forward. "But this time, we go in together, all of us. We don't leave him behind." "Even if he's not him anymore?" Jin asked. Jimin's voice didn't waver. "Especially then." By 5, 0 a.m. They were on the road again. No fanfare, no press, no goodbye. They drove in silence to the lake. The same lake that had nearly consumed them, that had taken Hoseok, that had changed Jungkook, that had become the altar for their sacrifice. But something was different now. The lake wasn't silent. It was singing, faint, high-pitched, like a child humming an old lullaby in a language no one remembered. The sky was still dark, though the sun should have risen by now. A crimson hue pulsed beneath the clouds. The blood moon, unseen, but not gone. They stood at the edge. Namjoon placed his hand on the surface. The ripples formed instantly perfect circles, one inside the next, pulling inward. "He's still there," Namjoon said. Taehyung whispered. "Then we go." One by one, they stepped into the water. The world shifted. They weren't in Korea anymore. They weren't anywhere. They stood on a stage, circular, endless, surrounded by darkness. At its center stood Jungkook, eyes closed, arms raised, floating, and above him a voice. Not his, not human. It whispered. They all listened. Now they must forget. Jin stepped forward. "We won't let you take him." The voice responded with laughter. It was Jungkook's laugh, but too deep, too slow. "You made him the lock. Now you try to free him? How precious, how predictable." Yoongi growled, "Give him back, then take his place." Everything stopped. Jimin stepped forward. "No," he said. "I will." Taehyung shouted, "No, Jimin." But Jimin ignored him. He walked to the center, eyes on Jungkook. "You're not alone anymore," he whispered. And he reached out. The moment his hand touched Jungkook's, everything exploded. Memories, sounds, screams, applause, flashing lights, trauma, laughter, interviews, blood, choreography, all of it. A storm inside the mind. And in the eye of it all, Jungkook, not the lock, not the vessel, just the boy, crying, young. Jungkook whispered. "I tried to hold it. I tried." Jimin pulled him into his arms. "I know," he said, tears falling freely. "It's okay. You don't have to anymore." Light tore through the darkness. The stage cracked, the pact shattered, and the voice screamed, no longer amused, no longer in control. The echo died. For real. When they woke up, they were lying on the shore. All 6 of them, alive, together. Jungkook blinked slowly, looking up at the sky. It was blue. The blood moon was gone. Forever. And in the distance, from someone's car radio, a familiar song played. A BTS song. Old. Unfiltered. Beautiful. They all laughed. Jin first. Then Yoongi. Then Namjoon. Then Taehyung. Jungkook laughed last. And Jimin cried, with him in his arms. They were back. Not idols. Not legends. Just 7 boys who had survived a war no one would ever understand. And for the first time in years, there was no echo. Just peace.